Dwarves need no armor.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is eSportsMonies, ESM, Mac10, whatever you want to call me, and welcome to what is my first build guide. It's for this computer. You can kind of see in the peripherals here. It is not a true traditional build guide because part of it is already done. The motherboard is installed, the CPU is installed, and the RAM is installed, and the power supply is connected, though I am going to go over the connections that the power supply has inside of the case, a few details about the case, and some general things about this computer. This is the first computer I've ever built. I built it in January of 2013. It's been collecting dust and was scrapped for parts to help support the new Ryzen rig. The new Ryzen rig I nicknamed Tiny. This I've nicknamed the Colossus. However, the new nickname of it will be the Daywatch PC. And the reason I'm calling it the Daywatch PC is because it is brought to you in part by my friends who are making something called a Daywatch. And what the Daywatch is it's a watch that quite literally tells you the day of the week, and that is the only information it provides you. So I should have put a Daywatch logo right here, and after I edit it, you will probably see a Daywatch logo appear here. So one of my friends who's involved with this group, gracefully can you grab me that box for the hawk? Gracefully donated this R9 270X. I actually purchased this myself in the spring of 2014 to do Litecoin mining, and then when I was no longer using it, it collected dust in or actually it was just in this box for a very long time, and then was sold to a friend of mine who eventually replaced it with a GTX 1070, and the GTX 1070 is what he currently uses, and rather than sell that, he decided to donate it because he's also friends with my little brother. What does your little brother have to do with this? This build is actually a birthday present for my little brother. My little brother was born on May 25th, and it is July 21st as I am recording this. I am very late with getting him this present because I am very late in getting this box for the graphics card. I'm also recording this with my AC unit on in the background and really hoping that you can't hear it because I don't want to turn off my AC because it's very, very hot. So, a little bit about my little brother. He's kind of an esports guy. He plays a lot of League of Legends. And he's been a console gamer for most of his gaming career. And I mean, I know it's disgusting. Personally, I can't stand anything less than 60 FPS if I can help it, unless the game only runs at 30, in which case, but anyway, this should be more than sufficient for his needs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specs during the build, so without further ado, let's actually get to the build. Okay guys, the first thing that we're going to do is give a brief overview of everything that we're working with and all of our parts. Could you hand me the bigger screwdriver over there? Thank you. This is my lovely assistant, Aaron, who you cannot see, who's off screen. So, here we have, of course, the Hyper 212 Evo cooler by Cooler Master, as the giant logo and branding would suggest. This is actually an auxiliary fan, like a backup fan, that I purchased and put the tracks onto here and here from my local Best Buy because the previous fan, the ball bearings wore out after 4 years of continuous use. This is an actual airflow fan and not a static pressure fan. However, it doesn't really matter that much because of the fact that I don't really do any overclocking. We're trying to keep this thing generally cool. My brother's house is generally cool. So, well, it was before he got this. And then, of course, below the Cooler Master CPU is the the AMD FX 8350, which has been my CPU for the past several years. And if you've been watching my content since before 2017, all of my content was produced and rendered off of that CPU. Typically speaking at 720p 60 FPS. Now we're 1080 60, of course. So over here we have 4 sticks of G-Skill memory. Each of these sticks are 4 gigabytes DDR3, of course, with this older Pile driver. I believe this is Pile driver, which was the more refined Bulldozer, still relatively horrible IPC compared to things like, Broadwell E and even earlier models. But with this generation, we are only dealing with DDR3. The clock speed of this is 1866 is our clock speed. So we have 16 gigs of DDR3 memory running at a clock speed of 1866. I can't cast latency, so we're 10.629. Wow, if that's actually correct, our cast latency is extremely low. This RAM was a relatively expensive kit. Back when RAM was a bit cheaper in 2013, January of 2013, when this computer was originally put together, this was a $100 kit for 16 gigs. It's actually, I believe, the same price. I think it might actually be 10 or 20% more expensive today than it was then because of the worldwide shortage in the dies used in making this RAM. That same die is used in SSD. So basically, what happened was there's a big bubble in the market for making RAM because there were so many people making RAM that a handful of companies that made those dies went under. And about the same time they went under, people started to realize those dies are what you make, what you use for SSDs, and people started contracting the same fabs that make RAM to make the SSDs. And of course, the demand for SSDs is incredibly high because they are freaking amazing. So now that's why RAM is so expensive. And SSDs are also, SSDs I think are actually getting cheaper, but RAM is, we're seeing a shortage of RAM at the moment, especially with all of the new PCs being built due to Ryzen. However, due to the lack of exciting things coming from Intel this year, the RAM shortage probably won't be that bad. So here we have a standard motherboard heatsink. It's passively cooled. We have three PCI 3.0, actually four PCI 3.0 slots, and you can see right here and right here the actual tabs. You can see the tabs here. The tabs for these two have actually broken off because they had monstrous, gigantic CPUs in them. In fact, here is the board of the last CPU that was in this thing. So this is a Radeon 7950 HD card. This is a 3 gig DDR5 card. It's quite good. It's actually better than the card that's about to go into this device. However, this card has been damaged. I had an issue where I wasn't getting anything to post, and it turned out my monitor was the problem, and I disassembled and reassembled my GPU so many times in the process, I actually ended up losing a graphics card because I had a bad monitor. And it wasn't even the bad monitor, it was a bad port on the monitor. So for no reason, I lost a perfectly good GPU, and the reason that this GPU caused these two sockets to completely wear out is because of the fact that there was so much weight on that GPU with the aftermarket, I think it's Arctic was the brand, cooler that was on there. It was an air cooler, and with that air cooler the card was completely silent and ran at 60 degrees Celsius when under 100% load overclocked. However, there were obvious drawbacks. So the motherboard is an Asus Sabertooth revision 2.0. I believe there's up to revision 4.0 now, which will let you use M.2. And I know NVMe. I don't know if you can get true M.2 speeds on this card in the revised versions. You can't actually use an M.2 drive on this because it is older. That being said, the standard SATA hard drives are pretty solid to begin with. Again, this PC is for my brother, and I don't imagine he'll want to buy a NVMe drive. So down here we have the power supply that runs the whole thing. This is 650 watts, 80 gold plus of power. I've already connected this, and it took me probably 5 minutes to connect this auxiliary 8-pin CPU power connector. Again, we're talking pile driver here. So this is AMD's older architecture that dates back from before Ryzen. It was the only architecture they had for years, and it's pretty bad, and it's a big boy power consumer. The TDP of this is, I believe, a good bit higher than my current CPU, which runs at almost the same frequency with like 60% more IPC and double the threads. This is just 8 cores. My current one is 8 cores, 16 threads with, again, 60% higher IPC. So down here we have a handful of SATA ports. I'm not actually going to check which one goes to where. I'm just going to make sure that they are all connected and then connect my hard drive. So this is kind of a Franken build. My Daywatch friends donated this card. This was the card that you all witnessed in the box earlier, the MSI Blackhawk, with the twin Frozer heatsink. I love the aesthetic, and I actually love the performance of this cooler. This was an incredible card. It was around $200 when I bought it. The price went up to $250 at the height of Bitcoin mining exploding in 2013. It's actually Litecoin that this was. I actually purchased this to mine Litecoin, and I bought it a little bit before the boom, so I saved some money. Nowadays, though, it is not a very powerful card, but it will get us through the basic esport titles. So that card's going to go into here. This is the big power connector that runs the entire motherboard. These are the two auxiliary CPU or GPU power plugs, and then running around the back we have the hard drive power. So first, I'm going to go ahead and connect this. If you are building a computer for the first time at home, you're going to need to Google how to drop a CPU, because I am not going to take out my CPU and redrop it, because my thermals are fine, or they were the last time I ran this guy, and it's kind of a pain in the neck to do that for no reason. So, alright, so now I'm going to grab thumb screws and slowly roll this in up until I hear it catch, or feel it catch. You don't really hear it because you're just screwing something in. And then once that's in place, take a screwdriver, and I actually like to screw this relatively tight. There are a lot of things on a PC where you only want them tight enough, you don't want them too tight. This is one of the things that I say, yeah, make that too tight, because this is the primary support for your GPU. Unless you have a GPU jack, which I didn't even know existed at the time, and if I had, then perhaps my computer would still have all of its functioning PCI Express ports. So over here, this is the optical bay drive. This optical bay drive has a small hole at the bottom. I actually use that to zip tie the bigger and heavier graphics cards that were here to keep them level. And I just tighten the zip tie up appropriately to keep them level and to try to prevent damage to the motherboard. However, that didn't work out as well as I hoped. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the power to this guy now. If you're building at home for the first time, you're going to want to wear an anti-static wristband, or at least build on something that's not carpet. I am standing on carpet right now, however I am wearing rubber shoes, so low risk of shock. This is also a relatively low budget PC, so not a big loss if I fry it, but I would still prefer not to. So this is a DVD RW drive. This computer's old enough that it still has optical bays. You can see the tears up here because I had to actually rip this open at one point. I don't think this works. It hasn't worked in years to my knowledge. Can you stick that through the second from the top? Mm-hmm. And because of that, I mean, I'm not really worried about it. However, I know that my brother, because he is not that hardcore of a gamer, again, he's a kind of a console peasant, so he will probably be interested in... Oh, that's good. He will probably be interested... I'm just going to screw this in before I click the drive into place, because I don't trust these clips. He will probably be wanting to have a disk drive. He has a massive... He loves Netflix, but he also has a massive collection of DVDs. In fact, I believe he has every single season of Family Guy on DVD ever made. So he will probably want access to a DVD drive. So if this doesn't work, he'll probably be sad. However, even though it's a DVD RW drive, and it's made by ASUS, which is a brand I have a lot of love for, it was $20 when I got it. So if you could put each of these in, we have dust filters for the front of the case. They should just clip in like so. Next on the list, we have the hard drive. Okay, so if you weren't laughing at this guy already, which I will now go ahead and plug a SATA cable into, however, this will require me to also plug in a SATA power cable, and this power cable is the same that powers my hard drive, as is the SATA cable that gets the data from my hard drive. So it's basically like hooking up an additional hard drive when you hook up an optical drive like this. So this guy is the hard drive. And you're like, wow, it's 2.5 inches. You got him an SSD. Nope. Nope, it's a laptop mechanical spinning drive. So yeah, how low can you go? It's pretty damn slow. It is 500 gigs. However, it does run at 7,200 RPMs, so it is a relatively fast mechanical hard drive. Yeah, you're probably cringing so hard right now, but I mean, come on. You can spend like $100 and go out and buy an optical drive and a decent hard drive, and that's like not my business. So, gonna go ahead and fasten him in. We have power here. We will have power over here. Actually, if this will reach, we may already have power here. Oh well, we'll worry about that in a moment. So, over here we have access to the hard drive that you just saw. Pardon?
The camera's too high.
Oh. So over here you have access to the hard drive that I just pointed out. And I am just going to go ahead and plug in a SATA cable. I guess I'll go with this black and white one. Worst case scenario, I just unplug this optical drive and my computer will know which one is which when it comes to supplying power. I'm actually going to run these cables back through here so that I have some slack to connect my my optical drive. Another thing that I want to really emphasize here is that I don't do cable management. I have a very, very minimalist cable management aesthetic in my current PC. And in this PC, this was the first computer that I ever built. And it also, you can't really see inside. It has no LEDs. It has no RGB. So, yeah. None of that. None of that. Okay, it turns out this wasn't even plugged in, so that's a concern. So I'll plug in the PCI, or the SATA power connector, and connect the fatter cable, the longer, wider cable, which corresponds to the longer, wider port, of course, which I just kind of gave you a close-up with on the hard drive, is the same one that you're going to use for power on your optical drive if you have one with an ancient piece of hardware like this. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the panels on it in just a moment, but first I'm going to give you a brief look at the front and a look at the top I/O. So in the center is a knob that controls the fan power for every fan in the chassis that is not connected to the GPU or the CPU, alongside what looks like a Thunderbolt port, no, Firewire port, ancient I/O, and then a single USB 3.0 port and 4 USB 2.0 ports. The USB 2.0 ports are actually powered, so this is a pretty impressive hub. You also have your standard headphone and mic jack and power and restart buttons. So with the front I/O, my motherboard at the time when I bought this was compatible with it, but the case was not inherently compatible with USB 3.0. So that port that you guys see actually goes all the way back to the rear of the case and loops through the case to reach the front. So it plugs into one of the ports on the rear, and then it's basically an extension cable. This guy right here, this USB 3.0 cable literally just goes to the front. This is an old guy. This is a grandpa rig now, but it was the first computer I ever built, and it is a lot of attachment to it. So let's straighten you back up and put on the outside case. So if you've watched my videos, actually if you look at the outro of this video, you will notice that this panel was actually mounted on the wall to my right, or to your left in the video, as a decoration for the last several months. And now it's back Hey y'all, eSportsMonies here, and here's my face. If you enjoyed that content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more content from me. And if you want to support the channel further, you can check out the Amazon affiliate links in the video description to buy all of the computer hardware that I own and use on a regular basis. And there's also an Amazon Prime referral link, so if you do not have Amazon Prime and are considering getting it, you can use that link. It costs you no additional money and helps support the channel. So, thanks a lot, and see y'all around.